Hello everyone, welcome back today to Angela's Craft Room. Today I've got a technique for you. Now I came across this on the web and I thought I'd give it a go, and I really enjoyed how it turned out. It's called Retiform Technique, and apparently it's been around forever. I just haven't seen it. And sometimes it's called the grid technique. So it's just a matter of which technique you want to call it. But for this one, yesterday I used the Magical Mermaid stamp set from Stampin' Up, and I made this one using the mermaid and a few of the backgrounds and a sentiment from that stamp set, and I was really pleased how it turned out. So I thought I'd just share the technique with you. So I've started a little bit of it off because otherwise the video would just go on forever. So to start with, what we do is I've got a piece of shimmery white, and that's 5 3/8 of an inch by 4 inches, and that just fits really nicely on my base colour card, which is Soft Sky. Now to start with, you've got to think of what stamp set you're going to use. You can use 2 or 3 stamp sets because you'll need the images to stamp on. So what I suggest is I just draw up roughly the layout that I want, and I write in each segment what image I'm going to put there, and it'll most probably change as I go along, but just to do it roughly. So what I've done is I've just started with Soft Sky, and all I did was you just need a really good piece of thick cardstock, and you just line it up, and then this is just Sky. I just always tap mine off because I don't want a lot of ink on there at first, and I just go round, and then I suggest you just turn it. And with this card, I've used this as my focal point, and then I've just sort of gone round. But you don't have to have that many segments done. You can have 2 or 3, or you can have 20. It's just depending on what images and what layout that you would like. So, and then I've just gone round, and you just line that up like that. And you will need a lot of sticky notes, because you'll see when we stamp our images, we need to mask off these segments when we're stamping the images. So I just want to put a little bit more right in that corner there, so it's like that. And then I just kept going round, turned my card a couple of times, and you can just do a line like this, or you can go in a circular motion. It just depends what you like. And don't be disillusioned if you don't like what your first creation is, because my first creation ended up in the bin because I really didn't like it. Excuse me. So then I found that I like to use subtle colours more than the brights and things. So then I am left with that by just going round and just sponging in the lines so that you're developing these segments, okay? And then I'm just going to use a little bit of Pear Pizzazz, and you can just leave it white like that if you want to, but I like to have another colour coming in. So with the mermaid, I used Pool Party as making my segments. I used Pool Party, and then I brought in a little bit of Pear Pizzazz. So with this one, I've started off with Soft Sky because it's a different stamp set all together, and then I'm just going to bring in a bit of Pear Pizzazz, and I'm just going to just take that whiteness away, and I just like to really go in and sponge it so it blends in with that other colour, which is Soft Sky. So you're best just to do each segment. So I just wanted to do the first part off camera because it would have just taken too long, because by the time we stamp all the images, and you'll see what I mean when I say you've got to mask off each one. So you don't have to be real fussy because you're going to be stamping your images in each segment. But I don't want to rush it too much, and I just like to stamp off my my dauber before going on to my cardstock. And I find using shimmery white, it just seems to blend a little bit better than just normal whisper white, but just experiment with it and see what works for you. So I'm just going to bring a bit more. Sometimes you would have to mask off to add, to sponge in this second colour, but I'm not, because it's such a subtle colour, I'm not worrying about it. The Soft Sky is a lot more darker in depth of colour than the Pear Pizzazz is, because I've done quite a few layers on it. So I think the hardest part is just deciding the layout and how you want to have your card as the finished product. So you can see it doesn't take long to put this second one on once you get the right colours. The first one I did, I think I used Pacific Point or something like that, and it was just way too dark for what I like. And you can even bring in a third colour if you want to. Pink Pirouette would be nice with this. I do have it there in case I want it. But I think it's a real wow factor sort of technique. When you first do it, it just looks like a pretty blobby mess, but you just need to see what stamp sets you've got that you can use. But I was really happy how the mermaid card turned out, that I just thought I'd share this technique with you. You've most probably heard of it, but I just haven't, for some reason I just have never come across it. So I just want to put a bit more. I don't think I will put Pink Pirouette on there. So if you're going to stamp with acrylic blocks and photopolymer stamp sets, you will need to use your piercing mat to do so. And it's just a lot easier if you do use acrylic blocks, because you know you're going to be doing a lot of masking, and you'll see that once I start masking, that it's really, you do use a lot of masking, but once I start, you'll see that how I use the Eclipse masking tape, it makes it a breeze with this sort of thing, whereas with the sticky notes, yeah, they're a bit painful. But it is possible. I know a lot of people do use sticky notes for this technique. You just have to take your time and do it slowly, whereas I'm trying to get it done in a video for you. So I'm quite happy with that, and it doesn't matter if there's a bit of white showing because we're going to be stamping our images on there. So what I might do is I might stamp the I'll just grab the Stamparatus, because there's some, I'm going to use the acrylic blocks as well, but for my image I just like to make sure that I'm going to get a nice impression in case I have to restamp the image. So I need my foam mat because I'm using photopolymer. Now I'm going to stamp, I'm just going to mask off across there, and this is where all the masking comes in, and then I'm going to mask, so my sentiment is going to be in this area here. Put my other magnet up there as well with the photopolymer. So I'm just going to take a piece of early espresso, and I will just pop my stamp pad under there, and I'm just going to stamp that up. Just a bit of ink gone on there. And I'm just going to stamp. So that would have been alright, but I'm just going to re-stamp it. And you can see with the so that is that one done. So then you just take off your masking, and I'm going to skip this one for now, and I'm going to mask this one. So you can see how I'm just masking off the segments, and that's why I wanted to do part of it before coming on, because I knew it would take a little bit of time. So I'm going to put my flying birds down. So don't worry, you don't have to fit it into that. That's the whole idea of masking. So you just pop them wherever you want them. And I'm going to do them in early espresso as well. I did do the mermaid using the acrylic blocks and just stamping them. I didn't re-stamp or anything like that, but I thought with the, sometimes with the photopolymer stamp sets I find I need to re-stamp them, so I might just use the So that's, and you can see how it's stamped onto the masking tape, but that doesn't matter. We just take that off, and that's all part of the technique. So then I'm going to mask off this one, I'm going to put the lighthouse here. I'm going to put the lighthouse here. So I'm going to put the flying birds over here. So you can see why you do need to have some sort of plan to where you want your images. So then we'll just stamp that up in Early Espresso. So you can see why I wanted to do that little bit of masking before coming on camera, because it would have just taken too long. So that's quite fine, that doesn't need to be re-stamped. So that's the birds we've done, so I'll just peel that off. And then up in this section here, I'm going to stamp some sand. So you can see how effective this technique is. So you've just got to make sure that you do stamp. See, I've got a little bit there. So I'm just going to grab another little bit of, just so it masks off properly. So I'm going to put my sand in there. See which way it sits better, because it's got that little notch where the so I'll just go this way. It's got that little notch where the lighthouse is supposed to sit. So I'm just going to put that up there. Just see if that's moved. That's all right. So I did try stamping with Sahara sand, and I just found that it was too light in colour for this technique. So we've got the sand there, so we're going to peel that off and peel that off. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to mask this piece off up the top here. It's really coming together nicely. So I'm working on just this piece here, and what I'm going to put in there is the little birds. It's just sticking a bit because it's photopolymer. So just make sure it's down like that. Then just going to use the Early Espresso for all these. Oops. Off. So then that comes off, take that mask off, and then See, I'm thinking all the time, and that's why I had to do a little bit before the video, because now my magnets are going to stick together. They are very strong magnets, so I'm not going to complain about them. So that's, I've got the flying birds there. So in this one I'm going to put the lighthouse. So I'm just going to mask that section off. And this technique wouldn't work with every stamp set. You just have to have a play. This is the first time I've used the lighthouse one, and I'm quite happy how it's coming together. So I'm just going to pop the lighthouse there, and I'm not like, the lighthouse is normally double stamping, two-step stamping, but I'm only going to use one of the lighthouse. So just stamp that in, and you can see I'm not having the lighthouse, it's not being stamped straight, because you've got to go with how you've masked off your panels. Panels most probably isn't the right word, but just where you've so I think with the photopolymer stamps, if you're using them, it is better to use the Stamparatus or a Misty tool or something like that, so that you can restamp it, so you get a really good impression. So then that comes off there. You can see how that's masked. And then I'm going to just pop that there. Just wipe that over. So this time I'm going to put the lighthouse, or didn't mask it. So just mask that off first. And by masking, you can go right to the top. You know, you can mask over that's the whole ideal, is to mask over your masking tape. So you can see you would have to use a fair bit of sticky notes with this technique, but you wouldn't have to be going as fast as I'm going. I'm just trying to make it so the video isn't too long for you. So we'll just stamp that up again so we get a really nice impression. And you will see that some of this is going on to the masking tape, which is the general ideal. So you see when I've removed that, it's cut off that, but it's blended all in, which is what we want. Now over this section I've changed my mind what I'm going to put there. I was going to put grass, but I've decided, because I've got the birds up there, I'm going to put the birds again over here. So that's what I mean. It's good to have a plan, but you know, it's quite all right to change it as you go. When I was doing the mermaid stamp, I even had to mask up and put in an extra segment. So, you know, it's just one of those techniques that you do as you go. but with the mermaid stamp that I used yesterday, it wasn't a photopolymer stamp set. So see how that's misstamped there? By using the Stamparatus or a Misty tool or something like that, it does give you the option to go in and re-stamp. But I found with the clear mount stamp set, you don't seem to have to do that. So then I'm going to just peel that off, and I'm really happy how that's turning out. Now we've just got a couple of more. So okay, so at the top here, see how that's gapped and the sentiments over there? I'm just going to take this off for a minute, and I'm going to sponge in just grab my Soft Sky. Where is it? So up here, what I want to do is I want to sponge there, but I'm going to put a bit of masking tape across there where I've already sponged. That's okay. And I'm going to okay, so I just need this, and I'm just going to sponge another line. So just using my dauber. So this is what I mean, this is what happened to me yesterday. I just wanted another section. Just in there, and while that's there, I'm going to get the Pear Pizzazz, just this one, and I'm just going to soften those edges where I just sponged in the. So I've created myself another section up the top there like that, and I'm going to do the same down the bottom. So I'm going to mask that off. Mask that off. And I've got another piece here. I'm going to mask that off. So just with the Soft Sky, I'm going to put a line across there to create another section. Then when I've hardly got any ink on that dauber, I'm just going to do little circular motions just to soften off the edges. And I'm going to take that off and that one off. And so you see I've created another section. So that's what you can technique, which is really good. So I'm going to bring that back, stamp apparatus, and just looking for my, so up the top there I'm actually going to put the top of the lighthouse. So I need to mask off that and mask off that. You can just, it's a good thing with the Eclipse masking tape, you can just tear it where you want it. And then I'll just wipe off that stamp a little bit in case it moves on me. So I'm just going to put that down there as well because it's going to sit on there. So I'm just going to do it a bit on an angle, I think, like that. So then I'm going to get the early espresso and stamp down on there like that, and it's just going to show the top of the lighthouse. So I'm sliding that off there and sliding that off there, and it just shows that little bit of the lighthouse at the top, because it just had too much space there. I didn't like it. So then down here I'm going to mask off there and mask off there, and you can see there's a little bit there, so I'm just going to put a little bit of mask right at the top of it. So I've finished with that. So then I'm going to grab the C and I'm going to put it, actually I should have a bit of mask happening there as well. And then I'm just going to put that as a background stamp up there. So even though the C's blue, it doesn't matter with this technique because we've already sponged in with a soft sky colour, so it's going to so I'm just going to re-stamp that, and we're just about finished. We've only got one more to do. So I'm going to press really hard down there on the top part where I wanted it. That's a lot better. So that's like that. And you can see how effective that is in that section. I didn't want to bring it all the way down. So in this section down here, I'm going to mask that off, of course. And this is our last image. So and And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put take that off. I'm going to put the birds back down there as well. So my big tip is don't put the same image next to each other, and don't be scared to use different stamp sets. But I do think when you're doing it with photopolymer, you do need some sort of tool like this. I didn't have this problem when I was using the clear mount with the acrylic blocks. So that should be it all finished. So I'll just get all this mess out the way, and I hope that tutorial hasn't gone too long, but so you can see what a lovely effect that does have on your cards. And then all I've got is a piece of soft sky, 11 inches long by 4 1/8 of an inch wide, and then scored at 5 1/2. And then inside I just stamped the lighthouse on a piece of Whisper White, which measures 5 1/4 by 3 7/8 of an inch. And then all we have to do then is just glue that to the card as such, and we're finished. So it's just one of those techniques that you've got to put a bit of thought in. And this piece, I did tell you, is measured 5 3/8 by 4 inches, and that way you're not putting any panel underneath it. You're putting this straight on the base of your card. So I know this video most probably has gone a bit longer than my normal ones, because I have tried to keep them down to 20 minutes, but it's just one of those techniques that you can't rush, and you may have to change things as you go through creating this with this technique. But I can see that's going to be a technique that I use quite a bit. I really, really love the effect. So we're just going to have that on as straight as possible. So that's gone straight onto the base of the card, no matting underneath. So I hope you enjoyed that technique, and I really hope that you do try it. I really like how it's come out with the high tide set. So just got to experiment a little bit, and then it's completely different really when I look at what I created with the Magical Mermaid stamp set, and then what I've created today for you with the high tide stamp set. So I hope you enjoyed that technique, and let me know how you go with it. And thank you for stopping by, and happy crafting till next time. Bye.